All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. Welcome to our Church Windows User Group webinar coffee break quick class on the Church Windows Payroll direct deposit setup. Welcome. My computer's a few minutes behind here, but my phone, I'm pretty sure, which is right on time, is showing 3 o'clock promptly. I'm going to go by that. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody did have an opportunity to, or logged on early enough to be able to watch some of the scrolling intro movie that we've got. We still continue to work on that, but hopefully that has some useful information about our blog page at the website, the new version resources. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua. I'm your presenter today for the Church Windows webinar. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. I hadn't unmuted myself, sorry. Welcome to our Church Windows webinar for direct deposit, payroll direct deposit setup. It's promptly 3 p.m. Eastern time here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody had a chance to see a few minutes spending time looking at the scrolling movie presentation that we saw at the very beginning here that points out the blog page, the new version resources information at our website. Please visit those pages. They're very, very helpful. So let's go ahead and dive into our topic. Of course, you're welcome to call support if you have any questions or problems at any point. Of course, during the after the webinar is completed, please don't hesitate to call us. We're happy to help. So the first thing that I like to do, I've taught this subject a number of times over the years, and it's really a suitable topic for a coffee break quick class. The direct deposit setup is it requires the employee file be set up in payroll just like other employees, but there are a few things to set up above and beyond that, in order to utilize or use the direct deposit feature in Church Windows Payroll. The first thing that I like to show folks is when we go to Help and Contents, it opens up our payroll help file. I go to the Search tab, I type in the keyword direct deposit and click List Topics. And right here, let me introduce my highlighter here. Right here under, we've got the topic called Using Direct Deposit to Pay Employees. Okay, that is the topic that I'm going to recommend that if you want to have a printout of essentially what I'm going to walk through today, albeit you'll want a pen and paper handy. There are some things I'm going to share with you that are not listed here in the help topic, so definitely make sure you have something to write with handy. But in terms of the actual technical and logistical setup of the payroll, you can print this using direct deposit employees. It's like a 4 or 5 page document that it will literally walk you through everything that I'm going to show you today in a printable format. Okay. So definitely take a look at that, print that out, or what have you. Okay, to see that this is a really, really important step. The first step that's when you're considering setting up and utilizing the direct deposit feature in Church Windows Payroll is to call your bank. Call the church bank, the bank that you'll be using for direct deposit. There are some questions to ask. Do they offer it as a service? Can you direct deposit our payroll file? Is there a cost involved with it? How much lead time, in advance of the money, the employees actually being being paid? Do you need to have the file? Those are the types of questions that need to be asked and are why it's important that you contact the bank right away. If your bank doesn't offer direct deposit capability or doesn't offer it as a service, then it's of no use to you. So, you could be going through a whole lot of times getting set up on it in Church Windows Payroll and not realizing that the bank, it won't even offer it as a service. I'll be shocked if they don't, but I have heard of situations where they don't. So please contact the bank, okay? Church Windows Payroll produces what's called an NACHA or NACHA compliant export file. Okay, it's a file that meets federal and national banking standards that can be imported into the bank's website and can pay your employees electronically. Okay, so that's a really important thing to understand is NACHA or NACHA compliant file that Church Windows Payroll produces that is transferred or transmitted to the bank that then gets your employees paid. Okay. This I talk about immediately after the topic of contacting your bank, because you want to let the bank know we already own NACHA or NACHA compliant software. The program that we use, Church Windows Payroll, produces a file that we can then transfer to you to the bank's website. Either walk it in on a flash drive or upload it through a website or something. That's one of the questions you'll have to ask them is, how do we transfer the file that Church Windows Payroll produces to the bank to then have them import into their system and pay your employees. Okay. So lots of times I'll hear churches say, "Oh, well, we're utilizing a service that the bank offers." Okay, well that's fine if you choose to use that, but you don't need to utilize a payroll service that the bank has, because our payroll system will do it for you. Okay. So again, there are a number of questions that need to be asked of the bank when you initiate this conversation. But definitely let them know you already have a software system that produces a file that you can transmit to them. Okay. So once you've contacted the bank, it's all a go. Either the fees are reasonable or it's free or what have you, and you're good. They do accept it. You're all set to go. Now we can look at getting the direct deposit features and functions set up in Church Windows Payroll. So it starts as it does with, you'll set up your employees under data setup under the employee file just like you would normally, whether they receive a check or whether you pay them using direct deposit. Doesn't matter. You've got to set them up here under the employee file. We do have in payroll what's called an EFT or ACH authorization form. If we click here under payroll and we see right down here near the bottom of the list, hopefully everybody can see that it says print EFT authorization form. Again, that's listed in that help topic I pointed you to. But we open this and it does reveal a document that you would print out and give a copy to each one of your employees who were opting for direct deposit payroll. It simply, confirms that, that they are agreeing to this. It does require then that they provide you with a routing number and an account number for either a checking or a savings account that their money will be deposited to, and will require a signature. This is just as much for your protection as anything else, to just ensure that you do have a record that the employee is authorizing that you pay them electronically as opposed to with a check. Okay, so definitely print this out, give this to your employees, have them complete that and send that back and give that back to you. Okay. A lot of folks don't know this, but yes, we have an EFT authorization agreement for direct deposit form here. Okay, very, very useful and very helpful. Again, once we have the form, we have to make sure under data setup and employee file that the employees are added here at the in our list with any other employee. The only difference is instead of the direct deposit employees receiving a check, they're receiving a stub and their money's being deposited electronically, but they all still need to be added as employees under the employee file. Okay. We have some employees in our training data here that are set up for direct deposit. Larry, our senior minister, doesn't matter whether they're a layperson or a minister, we can still pay everyone electronically. We do not have a feature in Church Windows Payroll yet that allows us to pay contractors electronically, so it is only employees, not independent contractors. Okay, so no direct deposit for independent contractors at this time. So here are Larry as our senior minister, so we choose his name from the list, and then we're going to go right down to the very bottom here and click on the General To tab. Again, this is listed on that help topic. Okay. Once we click on that, it reveals our General To tab, and then when we scroll down to the very bottom, we notice here we've got the checkbox for Use Direct Deposit. So we're going to check that box. And then based on the information that we have from our EFT authorization form, we're going to enter the appropriate routing number, account number, and choosing the correct or the appropriate type of an account. Now we do get this question periodically. So I'm just going to get it out there right now, is that payroll will only allow us to direct deposit to one account only. I cannot split a direct deposit transaction over a checking and a savings, or two different checking accounts, or what have you. Okay, so we can direct deposit to either checking or savings, one or the other, but not both. Okay. There are also some defaults that are established here. So what I'm referring to in terms of that is, it says EFT detail record on individual field. Basically, it's how does the bank identify your employee in the data file. The default is not required by your financial institution, which is the default. We're going to recommend that until we hear differently, after your pre-notify file is sent to the bank and they get back to you about it, yay or nay, thumbs up, thumbs down, that you leave it as the not required by your financial institution. If they need you to stipulate another way of identifying your employees, we can look at using these, use social security number or employee number or some other text identifier field. Okay, but leave it as not required. All right. That is where we then enable the direct deposit for your employees. Okay. And that's really it in terms of the employee file. We do also have to go to system administration, system profile, EFT ACH info. Here is where we would then enter the church's bank information. Notice here, routing number, account number, bank name, etc. Okay. Again, the company identification would be to use the tax ID and should be entered here by default, unless, again, the financial institution dictates to us otherwise, that the default settings that we have won't work. Okay. So again, I always recommend leave the defaults until the bank tells you differently, and you'll see why in just a moment. We do have overrides. So what I mean is that sometimes, the church will say, or the bank will call back and say, hey, we want to see a balance debit and credit entries on the EFT file. You can check that box, but only if indicated or stipulated by the bank. Okay? And the same is true when we're looking at this EFT ACH Overrides tab here in the top right. So if we send our test run or test file to the bank, they come back to us and say, well, there's certain information in the file. It's almost all there. There's just some things that we need to have adjusted. We would use this EFT ACH Overrides tab, and either edit the file header or the batch header or the detail header or the batch control based on what they're saying, what they tell us did or didn't work in the file. Okay. Again, we're not going to enter any of this until we hear back from the bank. Okay. Once those are set up, we've got the direct deposit enabled with the bank account information for the employee. We've got the church's bank information and organization information entered here adequately or correctly. We're then ready to send the bank what's called a pre-notify file. And again, that's one of those things that you'll want to let the bank know in advance of your first payroll. Is right here under payroll, we see the option labeled create EFT pre-notify file. That's a test run, a dry run, essentially. No money's changing hands. Everything has got a $0 amount. So if we click on that, generally, this is going to take sometimes, we're going to want to do this maybe a week or two before we actually do our first direct deposit payroll. Okay. So, we would, enter a lead time with as many days as the bank had indicated. So let's say we're going to send our pre-notify file with a pay date of the 31st. We click next. We're going to leave it as all of our employees electing direct deposit. Click next. We have two here. Notice net pay 0. Okay, right here, net pay 0. And this is very similar to our pay calculation process. So from here, we would simply click the finish button. Okay, get rid of my drawing there. And it would say EFT pre-notification file created. We click OK. Then when we go to payroll, we would do copy EFT file. I do have a number of them in here, but notice I've got one for July 31st. It's not going to allow us to calculate for 2 EFT pays for the same day. So I would simply choose that file, browse to some, wherever I needed to on my, local computer. Click OK. and click Copy EFT File. And then it pops in and says, File successfully copied to C users Kellyanne desktop EFT 15731. So I would then click on the OK button. Oops, let me get back to my regular cursor here. Now, when I minimize payroll, right up here, I've got my EFT, my DAT file now that I would then upload to the bank, or send to the bank however they had discussed it with us, okay? Again, usually it's going to be uploading it through a secure link at their website. You're going to email it to them. You're going to walk it in on a flash drive or something into the bank. However, your discussion is, or however most of the time it's just uploaded through a link at their website. But that is then a dry run. That's our $0 amounts there that we're then waiting for the bank to send out all the information to our employees' banks, and then they'll get back to us, with to let us know that the response from all of the financial institutions was successful or not, okay? That pre-notify file is really, really important. We do not want to just assume that the setup is correct and that all banks are going to accept that file, okay? I've had that situation occur, and it's not been correct, and it generates all kinds of problems, as I'll explain here in a moment. So make sure to utilize that EFT pre-notify file. If they get back to you afterwards that the direct deposit, the EFT pre-notify file was great and successful, you're ready to go, okay? And then as we go through the pay calculation process, then it basically gives us the choice to be able to, create an EFT file for our direct deposit employee. So here let's say, let me choose a couple folks here. One's with direct deposit, one without. Make my changes. I would calculate my pay like I would normally. Notice here I've got my option labeled Create EFT Transaction File. Okay. So then once I click Finish here, it'll say Posted successfully. It will then open up and allow me to print a stub or stubs for my direct deposit employee. I would print those to plain paper. Okay, here's my stub. It says to be deposited via electronic transfer. I'm not sure if everybody can see that right here, right there. And then once I'm finished with that, then I would click Next, and I would say, yes, the stub has been printed. Then it creates my EFT transaction file that I can copy. Then it opens up my check printing window for me to print checks for the rest of my employees. Okay. So now then, when I go to my payroll copy EFT file, here's my July 30th one where money is changing hands. I can then just upload that to the bank and they're good. Okay. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes left here, folks, before we get to the 20 minutes after the hour. I don't want to overrun that time. We really appreciate you spending time with us today, so I want to be respectful of your time. So just a few things before we wrap things up here. If you do not intend on uploading or using the file that our Church Windows Payroll module produces, do not go into the employee file and check Use Direct Deposit, okay? There's no need to, okay? If you're doing something through the bank's website or what have you, and you're just paying them that way, and all you need to do is produce a stub for them, you do not need to set up the Use Direct Deposit function in the software. We can go to the print checks window and assign, let's say, a dummy check number to our direct deposit employees and print a check to a plain sheet of paper, and it does essentially the same thing, okay? The part of the NECHA compliance of Church Windows Payroll is once the direct deposit employee is calculated and posted, it cannot be voided, okay? I can't go into payroll, void individual pay like I do with other employees. Notice here for my July 30th pay, Jimmy shows up because I was going to print a check for him, but my senior pastor, Larry, is not. Okay? The direct deposit payrolls, there are all kinds of headaches and hoops to jump through if there's a problem. The logic on it is that once I've created the file and I've transmitted it to the bank, I can't go over and grab that file back. Okay? It's a done deal. If there's a problem or a mistake, I have to find another way of dealing with it. Okay, so we can't come in here and void this pay, the direct deposit payroll. Others, checks, those with checks I can, but direct deposit employees I can't. So the bottom line that I'm getting to here about this is, sure, we can go through and calculate adjustments and do things like that in order to essentially wipe out the payroll itself, but boy, is it a headache, okay? So the only undo you have for your direct deposit payroll is if you realize that there's, before you transmit it to your bank, before the money's changing hands, is if you either before you begin your pay calculation for that day or after you've calculated your pay, immediately go into system administration and make a backup of your payroll data, okay? Then, if you realize, again, either before or shortly after you've calculated the direct deposit payroll, that there's a problem, you can go in and restore that backup, essentially wiping everything out and start over, okay? But that is the best piece of advice I can give you about this, is just get in the habit of, before doing your direct deposit employees or your payroll, go into payroll, sysadmin, go to backup data, make a payroll backup before you start. It's the quickest, easiest, and least problematic undo should there be a problem with your direct deposit employees. Okay? Yeah, that is really, that's whenever I get a support call from a user who says, oh, I've got a problem with the direct deposit payroll, is the first question I ask is, did you make a backup, or do you have a backup of your payroll data, that we could restore from beforehand to wipe that out? If they do, great. If they don't, then we got problems and we have to jump through some hoops to get that fixed. All right, it's 20 minutes after the hour, folks. I'm done with what I'm talking about here. If you have to go, by all means, please use the file menu on the control panel and choose exit, leave webinar. Thank you so much if you're diving out. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and stick around and see if questions come in through the questions portion of the webinar. If you do have those, please, you can go ahead and enter those now. All right, I'm not seeing anything coming in yet. Looks like we've had more than half the folks start out already, so I guess maybe I did a pretty thorough job on this today. I don't know if folks are typing in their questions to me now, and it's just taking a minute on that. I'm going to wait another 30 seconds or so and just see if somebody's typing in something to me. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you attending the webinar event today. Hope it's been helpful. If you do have other questions about the direct deposit setup or Church Windows in general, please don't hesitate to call us at 1-800-533-5227. Again, my name is Josh. We hope it's been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you at another Church Windows user group webinar. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everyone. Thank you all so much. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.